Welcome to another episode of Going All In, Get the Edge You Need to Succeed. I'm Dr. Erin McKinley, and today we have another awesome spotlight session with Laura Brubaker from the Bowling Green State University Dietetic Internship Program based in Bowling Green, Ohio. Check it out. All right, well, welcome to the podcast, Laura. To get us started for this episode, I would love for you to give us a little bit of an introduction on you, your journey to RD, and how you landed in your position as the director at Bowling Green.
Well, hello, I'm Laura Brubaker. And yes, as Erin said, I am the incoming, or I guess the proper name is the Transitional Dietetic Internship Director at Bowling Green State University in Bowling Green, Ohio, not to be confused with Bowling Green, Kentucky. We're a little further north than that. It's just such a long road how I got here. So currently the current dietetic internship director will be retiring in May. And long story short, she's actually the internship director that I interned under and am now filling her shoes. So it's a journey in so many different ways, but I'm so honored to have been chosen in order to take her position. So in any case, my road is, I have an unconventional road. I think most of us all say that we have an unconventional road to becoming a dietitian or whatever our dietetics, degree ends up being. So I actually, to really start at the very beginning, I had a job in food service when I was in high school. And that was the first time that I was ever exposed to a dietitian. I was working in the kitchen and a person would come through every so often with a lab coat on and just their clipboard and just looking very like they knew what they were doing. And I was like, who is that person that comes in here randomly? And someone said, well, that's the dietitian. And I was like, what's a dietitian and what do they do? And is it more than just eat your apples every day? So then that was the first time I was ever exposed to it. And then, as just kind of life happens and one job turns into another, that dietary position as a dietary aide and a dishwasher in a nursing home 2 blocks from my house turned into an opportunity to be a lead cook. Actually, while I was in high school, I was in the program called DECA, which is a leadership program that many high schools run. And with that program, you were able to work half of the day. So I would work there at that nursing home. And then that turned into an opportunity to be a food service director at a different nursing home. And then that turned into an opportunity to get the associate's degree in order to become a dietetic technician. So I went on that road, fresh out of high school, early 20s. Was, working in the food service. And then I have 4 children. And when I became pregnant for my second child, life was just kind of getting to be a lot. And I decided to become a stay-at-home mom. So the intention was to be a stay-at-home mom for 2 to 4 years. And, as I said, she was my second. So I had an older child as well. And so we decided to stay home. And that 2 to 3 year plan turned into a 14-year plan. And the dietetic technician degree just didn't get used. I didn't actually take the credentialing test, and I just didn't really understand at that point in time that, I wanted to, pursue that. I was just doing the motherhood thing, and that was fine. It fit for me. And then by the time 2 kids turned into 4 kids, and 2 to 3 years turned into 14 years home. And after that, I decided to go back to work as a DTR at about the same time that my youngest was going to kindergarten. So we always kind of joke that I liked his backpack. When he put his backpack on, I was like, oh, I like your backpack, but I'm going to do the same thing. So, and that was kind of how the school thing came into it. So I went back to work. I was working in a nursing home as a consultant dietetic technician underneath a DTR, underneath a dietitian, I'm sorry, and had a really, really complicated case that I always joke that it was how you get case studies at the back of your textbook, and you get the renal chapter and then the renal case study, and you get the sepsis chapter and the sepsis case study, and then you get the tube feed chapter and the tube feed case study. this person was everything all put together. And I was just like so out of my comfort zone. And I tell my students this story at the beginning of the semester to kind of get them to understand that like we're all in the same boat. We all kind of started somewhere. And I took my tube feed orders that they wanted me to adjust down into the nurse's station. And I said, can you have the doctor check this? And the nurse just looked at me and they said, doctors don't check tube feed orders. That's what you do. And I was like, oh, okay. So at that point, I decided to go back to school. I thought I just didn't have, what I needed. I didn't have the understanding that I wanted to have from a clinical perspective at that point in time. So I went back to school and so I was working at the same time. So I was actually working 2 jobs, sometimes 3 jobs, all in the dietetics field. And I was teaching adjunctly at a local community college, went back to school here at BG, got my undergrad in dietetics at Bowling Green, and then applied for the on-site internship and the master's program. And then actually just finished that up a handful of years ago, got my undergrad in 16 and my grad degree in 18. And then as soon as I had the master's, I was able to teach adjunctly there at Bowling Green. And then that just turned into kind of one opportunity after another, which then ultimately turned into, hey, what do you think about working underneath the current director and seeing how it goes? And maybe that's going to be a good fit for you as this director transitions out due to her retirement. And really, that's kind of what landed us here. So I have, on top of the teaching experience, I also have 8 years long-term care experience working as the DTR. And the majority of those years were also while I was going to school and doing my internship. And then I also, after I got my RD, I worked briefly in an acute care center, in a level 1 trauma center, and then transitioned from there to an LTAC, which is a long-term acute care hospital. So it's a hospital, not a nursing home, and it focuses on respiratory failure. So that landed me on the COVID front lines. So spent quite a bit of time on the COVID front lines. It's been a lot, to put it, quite mildly, and have been able to take those experiences back into the classroom and help, the students kind of understand how the world is changing consistently. And, as a program, how we're adapting to, to look more like the world. So to wrap it up, I guess really the point is that when someone comes to me and says, I'm not sure if I can do this, I know they can do it, because if you put your mind to it, you can do it. And where it gets rough, I'm there to help. And, some people might say, like, it's an unconventional road and I didn't get here the way that I expected to. And my answer to that is, yeah, we pretty much all say that. So once again, you're likely in the right place if you're, feeling, whether or not that's a match for you, it probably is.
And it really is true. We all have unconventional ways of getting to where we are today. And that's what makes it so fun and interesting and unexpected.
It really does. And it just kind of, I feel like every dietitian that you meet, you're like, so how did you get here? And then they're like, well, it was unconventional. And it's always so fun to hear, what their windy path was.
All right. So I would love for you to give us an overview of the internship program that's at Bowling Green.
All right, so I'm going to do as good at this as I can. I am somewhat new. I went through the program as a student, so sometimes I can look at things from a student perspective still, and definitely transitioning still into that role. We have an amazing program at Bowling Green State University, and I'm not just saying that as, the fact that I'm a faculty. I'm saying that because I went through the program, and I remember going into my experiences while I was doing my rotations and then into my RD exam, and many people saying Bowling Green interns just really shine. And I think that is a testament to the commitment of our students and also the commitment of our faculty. So what we have is a on-site internship program, and we also have a distance dietetic internship program. So a prospective student can apply to either, whatever matches better for them. We also have had for a number of years a master's program. Of course, we have that master's minimum coming in a handful of years. Our master's in food and nutrition is up and running and well tweaked and well facultied, if you will. So, many different projects that, we've completed over the years. We also offer a graduate certificate program. So that is for the distance. So we have the distance program that can be a distance graduate student or the certificate student, and they also can be the on-site students. So the main differences between our on-site internship program and our distance internship program is the number of students that we take. So we take about 7 to 8 students in our on-site program. So that makes the program a little bit more competitive in terms of, places, bottoms in seats, I suppose is one way to say it. Our distance program, we can take usually about 18 up to 20. We would be able to take that many students. So it makes the competition a little less and makes it a little less stressful when trying to match and decide how to rank and that type of thing. The other main difference in the programs is that we ask the distance interns to locate their own preceptors. At the time, we use DICAS. So at the time of their DICAS application, we ask that they know their long-term care and their acute sites and the preceptor's name. They don't have to have any, firm dates or, just a name and an email, and a location is really all we're looking for in that DICAS application for the distance. For the on-site folks, we will match, we will find the preceptors for those interns. So that removes the stress of having to, locate a preceptor here and there. And in this day and age, it seems there's plenty of preceptors still out there, but it is a little bit harder to locate them with different sites closing and with the different restrictions because of the pandemic.
All right. Thanks for that overview. One quick question about the program. How are you integrating RD exam review into the program so that the students are doing the best they can on that?
That is a great question. We have had, it just seems like that exam just gets harder and harder, and the competencies that we are meeting get larger and larger. So we are in the works of, and this is a little secret, so it's still definitely being planned, but we are going to be integrating RD exam review into our last semester of our on-site internship. So it's nothing official. We need to get, clearance from the school and all those types of things. In the interim time, before we have all that, the paperwork portion of it figured out, we may be offering that as an elective class where we are going to, I think I'm going to organize it by domain. So we're going to talk about domain 1 for, if it goes over the course of the semester, we've got 4 months, so we can spend 1 month on domain 1 and so on and so forth. And really, hunker down on some of those different areas where we see common mistakes in, intern responses to assignments. We have quizzes for the interns that they do. We have a practice exam. Of course, we have the competencies and the different experiences and their surveys and feedback and, all the things that you can think of to make sure that, they're learning what they're learning and they're processing it and it's sticking in that long-term memory. But it still seems like when it comes to exam review time, that a lot of people are just like, I don't know where to start. And I know I need to start at the very beginning, but I'm not finding the time. And of course, there's bills and jobs and lives and families and, all those things are kind of adding up. So we're thinking that it may work really well to have an organized time where the students can, the interns who just finished rotations can finish up, that just finished rotations can meet with us one-on-one. We also provide exam materials. And of course, there's all study groups and that type of thing. So we encourage, get a study buddy. I used a study buddy. We kept each other going. And, those are pretty, the simple ways, but it may be time to get a little bit more structured in it and say, we need to have an organized day that we meet with, we're covering this domain, and if you have the question, someone else probably has the question. So instead of trying to answer the question 7 times or 18 times, we can answer the same question 1 time in one organized place and help the students understand better.
Cool. I know with the change of the exam for 2022 through whatever year they decide to change it again, I know a lot of programs are like, oh, okay, now we have to change gears and make sure that we're reviewing properly. And I know a lot of students are putting priority on that in looking, when they're looking at programs, it's like, okay, this is all great, but how are you going to prepare us? So I like that you guys are putting together a little plan for that to really make sure they're prepared.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always say I'm a very visual person. So when I teach, my student feedback is usually she explains things really well, because I'm always like, all right, we're going to talk about, a red blood cell, and we're going to pretend it's like a roller coaster going through the vascular system. And then each roller coaster car is then the hemoglobin and the whole heme molecule. So we get down into pictures, and we do things fun that way, so it sticks a little better.
That's how I was as a student. We had professors that were really good at giving us lecture slides that had everything we needed. I was writing down their stories and their weird examples. It's like, this is like a bicycle. And I'm like, bicycle example. And that's what I would remember for a test.
Yes.
And I tell my students that now, and they look at me like I'm nuts. And I'm like, start doing it. You'll thank me in a couple of years. And then they come back and be like, I remember that random bicycle thing you said. I was like, the random umbrella example. I was like, I told you. I was like,
ours was, it was a pinwheel that takes carnitine from like the fat cell. Like she would get a pinwheel and she would spin it and she would talk about how carnitine has to go through the cell. And yeah, I don't think I could tell you the whole physiology, but I can tell you that there was a pinwheel and then it was an electron that was going through. I do remember that.
All right, I'm going to jump into the 5 questions that I ask all programs that come on the podcast. And these were put together with the help of my students to make sure that I was asking the questions they really wanted to know the answers to. So my first question is there one thing in particular that you just really love to see when reading an applicant's personal statement?
Well, if I only get to choose one word, my one word is authenticity. I want to see that they are a person who has chosen this program that matches for them and that they're, committed to, this, at least this career path. Now, where that takes you, whether it's food service or acute care or, wellness or however you end up, that's okay. You can make that decision as you complete your rotations, but we want to see that students are, definitely committed to being good students, to doing the work in the time that we're asking them to do the work, reading the feedback, taking the feedback to heart, and then, turning that into, I learned something and I will now carry forward from learning that. Another thing that we really look for is like paying attention to the details. That's one of the things, like in the application process, it says, specifically, we want you to make sure that you have, shown that you have found this, that, whatever it is that we're putting in, in our details. And some students just completely miss that. And it's one thing if you can't find it and you acknowledge it and say, hey, I'm really struggling here. This is my, issue. Can we talk about this? And do you have any suggestions? That's totally different from completely just bypassing it and not even addressing the fact that, we asked for something that it's not there. And so we can't make a good decision because the information doesn't exist from our side.
That's a very good point. Thank you for mentioning that. All right, moving on to resumes. This is always a big thing that my students always ask about. True or false? An applicant's resume should be 1 page and 1 page only. Either way, why?
I thought on that one because I was like, because there's such a thing as a CV, right? So the curriculum vitae is designed to be, longer, I guess is the better way to put it. You're going to put every little tiny detail in there that, can make that baby bulk up as much as possible. Where a resume, you really want to hit the main points. So I guess I can't really firmly say yes or no. So if I opened up a student's resume and it was 1.5 pages and it bumped down, I would see why. Like, are they including all relevant things? Like, are they telling me that they, babysat for someone in 8th grade, 10 years ago? It's not relevant unless you can make it relevant. It's not. I don't need to see that. If you have a lengthy resume because you have a wide array of experiences, I want to see that. But if you have a lengthy resume because you're trying to just add words on paper, I don't want to see that. So that's what it really comes down to. So I guess the trick in that is what is relevant to the student is also relevant to the program that's reviewing that. So obviously we're looking for their volunteer experience, if they have food service experience, if they have management experience, if they, what did they do while they were in their undergrad? What types of work experiences and volunteer experiences do they have? If that takes up more than 1 page, takes up more than 1 page.
All right, perfect. Well, my next question is my favorite question to ask directors that come on the podcast. And you can mention one thing, you can mention more than one thing, but what is at least one thing that an applicant may do? And this could be in any interaction you have with them prior to the application, something in the application, something maybe afterwards in an interview, or any contact you have with them while you're trying to put your rank list together. anything that they might do that might raise a red flag where you would think maybe this person isn't the best fit for our program?
We're evidence-based. We're a research university. And so we want to see our interns and our RDs that we produce out of our programs practicing with an evidence-based background. Like I always, explain maybe a science topic, like albumin is the one that, as RDs, we love to say, albumin is not a good indicator of nutritional status. Why? And the students will be like, cause. I'm like, no, it's not cause. Like, you need to be able to go toe to toe with those doctors or those physician's assistants and say, no, I am not ordering a supplement based on a low albumin because, and then you show me the evidence. You can show the studies, this, or, the different research that, we've got to prove that the albumin alone is a piece of the puzzle, but it is not an only reason for, writing a nutritional supplement or something along that line. So what I'm saying is that if we see a student who is not using science to, back how they're practicing or how they have practiced in the past, that is going to be a tremendous red flag. Just because we're science and what we do is based on science. And that's really, really important. Also, as I said before, paying attention to those details. So the director that I am going to be taking over for gives a wonderful example where there was a particular band. And of course, I can't remember that band. It was like ZZ Top or Van Halen or somebody like that in the 80s, those, hair band days, that in their contract, they said that they wanted only a particular color of M&M in their, in a candy bowl on their table. And it sounds, oh my gosh, how pretentious can they be? And, they want to have a certain color of M&M. That wasn't what they were after. What they were after is when they got into the hotel room and they found that there was that certain color of M&M on their table, they know that the people that came to the program read the contract, and they know that they paid attention to the details, and they know that they're going to be in good hands, all around. So we are looking for that with our students as well. If you're paying attention to the details and you're, doing all of the required parts and pieces for your application process, then we're going to know that you're committed and that this is going to be a good match for you and that you're going to be successful in the program and an amazing dietitian down the road.
All right. I like that example.
I totally stole it, so that's not mine.
That's okay. We all borrow for the benefit of the student. No problem.
That was just ripped off. It wasn't even borrowed.
All right. So my next question, what is one aspect of the program that you feel truly separates you from the competition?
Well, I'm biased because I'm from here and I went to school here and I stayed here so long that they just plain kept me. So I guess that speaks volumes for, when it was time to cross the graduation stage, I still wasn't ready to leave. And that's because at Bowling Green, it's not too big. It's a somewhat small town next to I-75 in Northwestern Ohio. We have it's not a small program, but it's certainly not a large program either. Each of the faculty, we know our students by name. We know what their unconventional road is. We know what their goals are. We know, we watch them as they're changing and maybe their goals change as well. And we are so ready to kind of like move at, with that ball as that ball changes for the students as well. We'll be like, yeah, so-and-so came in and maybe first they were interested in acute and now they learned more about food insecurity and now they want to go more on a community route. And we will change, what rotations they're focusing on, or maybe what their master's project might be, or, other research opportunities, or we have a graduate assistantships where they get like a stipend when they have a GA when they're the on-site interns. And maybe we'll match, which faculty member that they're working with to match that interest level. So I think what really, really makes BG shine is that, and many students say this, that when they arrive on our campus, it is absolutely serene. It is beautiful. And it's also bustling. It's just so full of, young people and people of all ages, not just all young people, but, many people of all ages who are, reaching their goals and going beyond any breadth that maybe they thought that they could, and they're achieving these things. And it's just a very fostering environment. And our faculty, we really work to make sure that all of our students, undergraduates, graduates, interns, and everything in between are, really having the time of their life and an experience that they can walk away with and say, I am from BG and I'm proud.
All right, awesome. Well, my last question of the 5 is a 2-part question. So we'll tackle the first part. What would be the 3 best adjectives, and you can include descriptors or phrases, whatever's easiest, that would describe your program overall?
Our program overall. All right. I would say personal, small town, but not too small town, but definitely has the small town feel. So it's safe. You can easily park your car and, it's safe in that way. And as I mentioned before, it feels like home. Even if it isn't your home, by the time, you're done there, you are always going to have a connection, and you're always going to have your orange and your brown that brings you back to being a Falcon.
All right, for that second part, same, very similar, 3 adjectives, descriptors, or phrases to describe your ideal applicant.
We are looking for applicants who are committed. We are looking for applicants who are confident. Just because you're confident you don't need to know everything, but you need to be confident in knowing that I will continue to learn more. That's a different kind of confidence. And we're also looking for students who are ready to transform, in terms of like, I'm going to come here. One of my favorite things about the year that interns go through rotations, and I felt this change for myself, was something happens from the beginning of rotations. They're always like, oh, I'm so scared and I'm not ready. And what do I wear? And how do I park? And, and then by the time they get to the end and they're like presenting their formal case studies from their acute care rotation, and they're using those big words and they're talking about, their experiences. And when they explain this to the doctor, and they just transform from this somewhat nervous student into this person that now like identifies as a registered dietitian. And that credential runs deep. Like, I know it's a professional thing, but I feel like my epitaph is going to be like mom, wife, RD. I'm just, very, proud and excited about this career field. And we're looking for that in our students as well. And we love to watch them transform when they're like, I feel like a dietitian. Like it's going to go on my epitaph too.
I know when I was finishing up, I was saying to people, I've never felt smarter in my entire life. Like my brain felt like it was like this. And I would overhear people's conversations and be like, I know how to answer that question. Oh, I'm sorry. Who are you? Like they didn't know who I was. And I'm just like, I'm studying so much that like, I know everything. And then you take the exam and then it kind of, those parts of your brain kind of go to sleep a little bit. So I always joke with my students, like my clinical brain's just sleeping right now, but my community brain's on. The same thing's going to happen to you. It's all going to stay in there. You're just going to like turn on different switches when you need to.
It is so amazing watching. I remember too being very starstruck, like particularly at the beginning of my acute care rotation and like having like my lab coat on and feeling the imposter syndrome really, really underneath the surface. And some of the RDs came down and they were talking about like hemodynamic stability. And I'm just like, I think I know what that means. Like, I think I know that med. And you see the students do that too. And you can ask them a question, not in the beginning, but you can certainly ask them a question that's higher level like that at the end. And bam, they have just got it and they are confident and they are ready to hit the ground running. And it is so fulfilling. It is amazing.
All right. Well, that was all the questions that I had. So I would love to close out this episode with a take-home message from you to potential applicants.
Take-home message. Check out BG. You just never know. It could be exactly what you need.
Thank you so much, Laura, for being with me on this episode and having a great conversation about your program. And for those at home who would like some more information on the Dietetic Internship program at Bowling Green in Ohio, I've included their website link in the description below this video. And as always, don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode with another awesome dietetic internship. And we'll see you next time. Bye.